It became an iconic tune the minute it was released in 1992, but what are the hidden complexities that make this song worth learning all these years later? Let's talk about that. Hey kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Over my many years as a guitar teacher and touring musician, I've learned thousands of songs, and they've all taught me something that stuck with me and helped me along the way. Mastering tunes makes us better players, and that's why every guitarist should learn Them Bones by Alice in Chains. Hey the kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Alice in Chains remains one of the greatest bands to come out of the 90s, and with good reason. The insane riffs, the amazing rhythm section, the incredible vocal melodies and harmonies, there's just so much to love about this band that brought so much doom and gloom to the 90s grunge scene. Them Bones is off of their Dirt record, which remains one of the best feel-bad records of all time. And it's got some amazing riffs, some great guitar playing, really intelligent songwriting, and some awesome odd time signature stuff that we can learn from. And on today's video, I'm going to take you guys on a guided tour through this tune and show you everything that you can learn from it. But you're going to get even more out of this video if you check out the extended and ad-free cut, which is available only over on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. People are saying it might be a cult. I'm not arguing with them. But it's also a great place for awesome people just like you to hang out with like-minded players and soak up hundreds of bonus videos, downloadable tabs, backing tracks, and so much more for as little as $1 a month. So don't delay, sign up today over at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Now, let's get into it. First things first, if you want to play along with this tune, you got to tune that rock guitar down more lowlier to drop D flat. Or drop C, hashtag as the kids like to call it. And I'll tell you, this song is worth learning just so you can try and replicate Jerry's beastly tone that he has on this song. I'm doing my best impression today by wielding my trusty Gibson Les Paul / Gold Top here with the bare knuckle Black Dog pickups, and I'm playing through the Friedman JJ100 amp, which just makes sense as that is Jerry's signature amp. I got that from my good friends over at Sweetwater as part of one of their open box specials. It arrived mint because of course it did. Sweetwater's just OCD about whatever they label as being an open box special, so hit them up and get those good deals over there. And of course, if you're trying to replicate this tone using the classic DoD grunge pedal, I recommend setting it to off. Jerry's always had this brutal, huge guitar tone since the very first days of the band, and he's always favored tones that are really big and thick sounding with a little bit of high end rolled off. One reason to learn this tune is so that we can all finally start playing that main riff right and break the generational curse that has kept people playing this riff incorrectly forever. Because I see a whole lot of tabs and lessons out there that have you starting off with this guy. The Hendrix chord, right? That's what everybody calls that one. I see a lot of lessons feature that, and that is not what Jerry's playing. He's striking the bottom 3 strings open, and he's got the 5 on the G and the 6 on the B. Again, watch live videos, you'll always see him doing this 2-finger grip. Except for what sounds like every third time through the riff where he takes that shape up 12 frets. I had never noticed this before until I started making this video, and I was really going down the rabbit hole, getting in the weeds about how he plays every single thing in this tune. And I noticed sometimes he jumps up here. You can find the isolated guitar track here on YouTube as well, and you can hear it really well whenever it's coming out of the first chorus of the song. So be sure to check that out. You'll hear those high notes a lot more better there. Another thing we can learn from this is the value of how much different a riff can feel if we vary our technique here. Here's what I'm talking about. Downstrokes sound very consistent, very accurate and punchy, and that's not how Jerry plays it. If you watch any videos of him, he'll always play this with an alternate strumming kind of approach, doing a downstroke for the chord and then just alternating down and up the rest of the way, more like this. And the verse does something that I really love here. It doesn't introduce a new character into the story of the song. It just reduces down what you already heard to something more simpler. Check this out. It's like reductive songwriting. You had something that was so sick with that main riff, and now you gotta have vocals over it, right? So why not make it a little bit less intense? Why not leave more room for that vocal to shine through by taking what you already have heard in the song and just stripping it down a little bit? I think it's cool too to see that all these years later in their career, Jerry kind of revisited that same chromatic idea with the song Hollow. It's kind of like Them Bones, but in reverse and in 6/4. Be sure to check that out. Chains has like always been the most dark and doomy of all the grunge bands, and riffs like that are a perfect example of why. Now, easily one of the coolest things that you can learn from the intro and verse riffs of the song is how to play around with some odd time signatures, because that main riff that we hear is in a time signature we call 7/8. The quickest way to understand this is just to count off each measure exactly as the time signature is telling you to. Every measure in those riffs is 7/8 notes long. Now, what's an eighth note, right? So if you have a beat that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, eighth notes inside of that would feel like we're hitting the midway point between every beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's the difference of hearing 1, 2, 3, 4 versus 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if you're counting the ones and the ands, just count out 7 of those. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That was right at beat number 4, right? And then just start over. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You'll notice that after 4 we didn't have an and. You know, it makes the rhythm feel a little bit lopsided, like we're cutting the measure short just a little bit, because that's exactly what we're doing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That's 7 of what? Eighth notes. Hence 7/8. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1. I always tell guitar players, man, if you want to learn more about odd time signatures, just learn music that's in odd time. I learned so much about rhythm just by learning Dream Theater songs and Soundgarden songs. So much of Super Unknown is in odd meters. It's crazy. That record has like more odd time signatures than a Rush album. I'm not even kidding. I'd love to do a video off something from there. Let me know what Super Unknown song you'd like to see on another episode of this series. But if that still isn't making sense to you, let's dig a little bit more deeply. In the musical world, we measure the length of things using time signatures. Just like how in the physical world, we measure the length of things using inches, if you're in the United States, of course. If you're a logical person like everybody else in the world, you use the metric system, which makes way more sense. But I digress. Let's use a little bit of visual aid here. Right here on my amazing Remarkable 2, I've doodled out a partial 4-inch ruler, much like you'd use to measure your average 4-inch thing. And this is really great to help me measure stuff. For example, this Dunlop T3 guitar pick here. If I hold it up, I can see it measures right at 1 inch. Look at that, right there on the tick. Very easy to see that. What if I take my case here from my worthless Apple AirPods, which don't stay in my ear worth a shit. Apple, what were you thinking? These things are awful. Anyway, if I hold that up to my ruler, I can see that they are right there at 2 inches. How handy. Rulers are great. But what if I was measuring my awesome Magna slide piece here, right? Well, if I hold that up to the ruler, I'll notice, uh-oh, it doesn't conveniently fit on the marks now, does it? It's not right on the lines. It's somewhere in between 2 and 3 inches. Drat, what can I do? It's unable to be measured now, right? Well, it is until we start dividing that inch a little bit and put some extra ticks on this ruler. For example, I can put in a 1/2 inch tick right there. Now I have a 1.5 inch tick, a 2.5 inch tick, a 3.5 inch tick, and a 4.5 inch tick here just off of the ruler. This should help me measure stuff a little bit more better. Now look at that right there. Now I can accurately measure my Magna slide now that I've put some 1/2 inch ticks on here. I can see that it is 2.5 inches long. But just remember, it's not the length of the slide that matters, it's what you do with it. So the next time you're counting a riff out and you're not really feeling it line up on the ruler like that, just try dividing it more. Now let's talk about some of the thematic elements that carry over once we get into the chorus of the song, which is also pretty simple at face value. Just like the main riff of the song, this is ultimately chromatic, right? Because we have... One of my favorite moves happens over the A chord. And well, it's A flat if you're in this half-step tuning, but you know what I mean. See that move right there? Here's what we got going on. We're hitting this A power chord, which isn't major or minor in nature. It's just a power chord, root and fifth. But when he plays this lick after it, he ends up landing squarely in this A major triad. There's the root A, the fifth E, and the third C sharp. And that's really a move that's just like straight out of the Hendrix playbook, right? Because how many times have you heard him do a move that was like... Actually, you know what? I think the first time that I ever heard that move was in 90s Christian rock classic Big House by Audio Adrenaline. I also hear John Sykes do this all the freaking time. I've done a bunch of John Sykes videos here in my channel you can check out. Because that's a move he does all over the place, like in Still of the Night. Somehow I've managed to bring in Whitesnake and 90s Christian rock into this Alice in Chains video. Not really sure how I feel about myself for that one. That's all the riffs that there are in the tune. And the guitar solo that Jerry plays is awesome, and it just goes over an entire lap of all those parts. They do the exact same thing in Man in the Box as well. That's a really simple tune, and the solo just goes over the form of the song. So many of these Alice in Chains songs have great solos that are very inspired by Hendrix and Tony Iommi. There's even a little bit of like Ace Frehley in some of those licks that he plays. There's so much awesome 70s rock in what Jerry did in these solos, and they're absolutely worth learning. Let's dig into it a little bit. One thing that you'll notice if you listen to the isolated guitar track of the song here on YouTube is that the lead tone is actually pretty small and narrow sounding. I think a lot of us just go for the biggest tones possible that take up so much frequency and so much bandwidth. But what you'll find in the studio is that if everything sounds big, nothing actually sounds big, right? Nothing stands out as sounding huge. There's a multitude of different ways you can achieve this. You know, you could grab a different guitar with a different pickup in it, try a different amp, different mics on the cab, and maybe most importantly of all, just try a different cab out. It's not necessarily even my favorite sound on its own, but whenever you put it over that big ass rhythm tone, it's going to cut through the mix really nicely because it's doing something that the rhythm tone isn't. I love how rhythmic it is when he plays that. It's almost like that lick is a riff in itself. And I love that sliding lick that he has right there. Landing in that double stop up top. Really cool sounding. Now after this, he moves up here to the 10th position, what you might recognize as the traditional D minor gin and tonic scale. This is a great example of soloing over those odd time signatures too, because he hits that first juicy bend, and then you can almost tell that he's listening for that riff to flip back around. Because right there where it lands on the downbeat is where he continues with what he was doing in the solo. Really cool example of playing around those odd time signatures and not making it feel really jerky or wonky. You know, it's also worth noting too how you can do some really reductive melodic stuff in your soloing as well. Rock guys like Jerry will look at that and be like, well, this feels like home bass. It doesn't sound happy, so it must be minor in some way. Screw it, I'll just play minor pentatonic over the entire thing. And he mixes in a little bit of just a straight D minor scale in there as well, which is kind of illogical because this riff has notes that are not in that scale, but it all ends up sounding pretty great. Here recently when I was doing the gig with Mastodon at Tool in the Sand Festival in the Dominican Republic, and I was learning all that material, I noticed they do that same thing a lot too, where the riff might be something really jacked up and weird and atonal or chromatic, but the soloing that Brent Hines was doing over the top of it would oftentimes just be simple minor pentatonic stuff. It's like pairing a really familiar soloing language over an unfamiliar harmonic language in the riff sometimes works just to simplify all that harmonic lingo that's going on during a solo section. Just goes to show you there's absolutely nothing wrong with keeping it simple and playing the hits. I see a lot of transcriptions for that area taking place down here, and similarly, like with the 10th position thing, I see a lot of people playing that here, for example. The tone is a little bit more thin and more bitey whenever you play it down low on the thin strings, but it's a little bit thicker sounding whenever you play it up high on the fatter strings. All the pros know this, and they'll make very careful decisions about where they're playing certain things on the neck just to suit the tone that they're going after. And this section up here at the 14th position is no different. Check this out. Really intelligent move. That's a D minor triad, DFA. You think about arpeggios and triads and you're thinking about yin-yang Valvoline playing those sweeps and stuff, but this is a cool way just to work in a standard arpeggio into your soloing. That's a cool one. Using that low string a little bit up high. Now this move is again another one that I see people play different sometimes. They'll play that down lower, but it sounds again thinner and brighter when it's down here. And also whenever you're up here on the G and you're doing that monster 1.5 step bend, it's inherently easier to do because you're at the center of the string, the 12th fret being the exact middle point of a string. You're closer to the center, which is where the trampoline is the bounciest. Our strings are no different. So I think he probably consciously put it right there just to make that bend a little bit easier to play. I want to point out too the way that he did the overdubs in this solo, because that's definitely something that we can all learn from. Coming off of that big bend, he slowly lets it back down to that A note. And the other guitar comes in on top of it while that note's still sustaining to play this section. Ends up sounding kind of like this. Just a cool way to make it so it's not so abrupt where one guitar ends its lick and then another one jumps in. And then over the part that goes from C to B, he plays this lick. And then here's a really cool one that he has in here. It's this fast repeating lick. This is a great one to learn if you want to work on your economy picking. That's how I'm playing it. I'm playing it with just downstrokes. Check this out. I do a downstroke, then the hammer on a pull-off. That gives me enough time to get above the G for another downstroke. And then I just push that pick through and wait on the B string until it's time to start the next section of the lick. So it ends up sounding like this. I think that's the easiest way to play those high-speed repeating licks like that for me personally. But I've noticed a lot of other players play this with outside picking. Jerry does this too, where he'll do an upstroke on the B string and then a downstroke on the G. I actually think that's a little bit harder for me personally, but that is an approach that works for like 9 out of 10 guitar players, so it's worth learning that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that ends up taking up that entire measure of the riff. And then you're just going to end up crash landing into this bend with another downstroke. And again, there's another really cool overdub thing that happened behind that too, where it sounds like on his G&L Rampage there, he's doing this really big, long dive bomb behind that entire repeating lick. It sounds really cool, and I never noticed that until I heard the isolated track. And then the solo caps off with another Cantrell classic. He stomps on that wah and really accentuates that bend that he does up really slow with multiple pick attacks on it. I don't have my wah hooked up right now, but I can tell you this for sure, the Dunlop Cantrell wah is the best sounding wah on the market. It sounds freaking awesome. That's my absolute favorite one, and Jerry should know because he's a wah pedal master. Meat and potatoes, rock minor pentatonic phrase with a lot of attitude on it, but again, it really ties into the groove. I especially love that last, kind of goes out the way it came in, you know? With something that's very riffy on the low strings. Great solo, lots of fundamentals in there, and it's not too hard to learn. So there you go, guys. Everything you need to know about why you should be learning one of the most awesome songs to come out of the American grunge scene of the 90s. I love Alice in Chains so much. It was really hard to narrow down what song to do for this video. This is actually, wow. This is the first Alice in Chains video I think I've ever done on my channel. That's kind of weird to think about. I've been doing this stuff for like over 10 years and somehow I've never done a Chains song. That makes no sense. It was between this and like Damn That River, which is another one that I love. I also just thought about, you know, really playing the hits and doing Man in the Box because there's a lot of cool stuff in that one too with the talk box and all that jazz. But I just really like this tune, and the odd time signature thing really spoke to me. But let me know what you guys would like to see featured on a future installment of the series on my channel. I love digging into stuff from all different eras and styles of music, and it's a great way to explore these, and it's fun to talk about why we should all be learning these classic tunes. If you want to get even more out of this video, check out the extended and ad-free cut available over on my Patreon Patreon page at patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Even for just $1 a month, you can get access to that video and tons, I'm talking hundreds of other bonus posts and exclusive videos and all that jazz. So don't delay, sign up today. I'll see you guys over there. Thanks so much for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, like the video, and ring the bell for notifications every time I upload a new slice of fried gold. And stay tuned for another cool guitar video coming at you next week. Well, guys, it's been fun as always, but it's off to beat on this Les Paul a little bit more, I think. I'm having a little bit too much fun today. As for you guys, I recommend getting away from the computer machine, grabbing your guitar, and doing some rope mashing of your own. Less clicking, more picking.